We don't talk much about grief, and as a society, it's not really discussed. And other people don't know what to do. Even to this day, I struggle when somebody says they've lost someone. What do you say? I'm sorry, and then it doesn't feel like enough. And then sometimes people just want you to be happy, so they try to drag you out of the house to go do something fun and tell you that it's okay, you should be happy. And the truth is, whatever you feel is okay. If you feel guilty one minute and happy the next, that's normal. Grief tends to come in waves where you can tolerate it for a little while, and then you might have a moment of happiness, and then you feel guilty for being happy, and then you're sad, and then you're angry, and then we don't know what to do, and a lot of people just end up suffering in silence. When I was a kid, actually, I wanted to be a doctor. I was a pre-med major up until my first day of college, and then we had to dissect cats. And everybody else was really excited about it, except for me. And I realized I actually didn't want to be a doctor. I just loved the idea of being a doctor. So I thought, I want to help people, but I don't really necessarily want to do surgery on them. So I thought therapy was the next best option. Is, okay, how am I going to help people, but I'll focus on the mind. We'll do everything from the neck up. And decided then that that's what I wanted to do, fell in love with it, and decided to go to grad school and pursue a career as a therapist. I started out as a therapist in rural Maine, in a small town, working with mostly kids at first, and thinking, okay, I learned all this stuff about mental strength in college, here we go. But when I was 23, which is about a year into my work as a therapist, my mom passed away. And losing her just really reminded me of, okay, I know this stuff intellectually. These are the things I'm teaching people, but to go through all of that pain on a personal level opened my eyes to a lot of things I didn't know before, and to figure out, well, what am I tempted to do when I'm in pain or when I'm struggling? And started studying the people in my therapy office a lot to say, well, how come some people come in and maybe they've been through really hard times and they get stuck, but other people will come in and they've been through tough times, but they're optimistic, they're still trying to build a life. So I learned hopefully as much from them as I was giving to them. 3 years after my mom died, my 26-year-old husband died of a heart attack. Obviously at 26, you're not supposed to have a heart attack, and I never imagined I'd be widowed at 26. And then had to figure out, now how do I help other people deal with their problems when my own heart is broken? And it took a long time. It took years, I guess, for me to really feel like I was working on my own issues, which is a strange place to be, to say, here I am with a broken heart, trying to fix all of these unhealed emotional wounds in my own life, and yet I'm supposed to be helping other people at the same time. And it took years to feel like, okay, I'm going to rebuild my life. And I did. I got remarried, I got a new house, I got a new job, and life was looking pretty good. And then shortly after that, my father-in-law got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And it was in that moment that I just thought, I've grieved for 10 years. I don't want to grieve any longer. I couldn't imagine losing one more person. And I felt like in that moment, like, well, what's the purpose? You go out there and you do the best you can, you build the best life you can, and boom, boom, boom. If you keep losing people, it's awful. And in that moment, I just couldn't imagine like getting through it. It just felt like, what's next? Or how could I possibly keep losing my loved ones? But then it was also in that moment that I wrote a list of what mentally strong people don't do. And it was a letter to myself about how to get through the next few days, really, is what I was looking at. Because when I lost my mom and my husband, it was sudden and unexpected, but losing my father-in-law, we knew it was coming. And I thought, how do you prepare yourself for this? How do you get through it? And so I would read over this letter, and it was just, hey, don't do these things today, and you'll get through it. As long as you don't do these certain things, you'll be fine. And I found that letter to be helpful, so I published the letter on the internet, thinking 3 or 4 people might read it, hoped it would help somebody, but 50 million people read the list, and then I got to write a book about it, and here I am, all these years later, still talking about mental strength. I never imagined what was around that next corner. I could really only imagine that things were going to keep getting worse, and we lost my father-in-law shortly after I wrote that letter, and I was still filled with grief, but it was just one of those times in life to remember that even though really bad things happen, something really unexpected that's a wonderful thing could be right around the corner too, and you just never know what's around the corner until you keep going. It's amazing to think that my story has helped people. As a therapist, I was always used to hearing people's stories. I never shared my own. So even when my original list of the 13 things mentally strong people don't do went viral. Nobody knew why I wrote it. I really had no plans of telling anybody. And it was my friends that said, "You think you should tell the backstory?" And I remember saying, no, like, I'm a therapist. I'm not gonna burden anybody with my personal issues. I'm just gonna put that out there and walk away. And they really convinced me, like, no, you have a story behind it. You should share your story, and which is words I always tell my clients as well. So I thought, okay, let's see what happens. And so it's been an honor now to be able to share with people, okay, I'm not just saying these things because I'm a therapist, but I'm saying because this is what worked for me. And I'm glad I shared my story now to be able to say, it's not just about things I learned from a textbook. These are the things I went through in my own life, and they helped me. Maybe they can help you too. Because sometimes people will be like, oh, it's great you got to write a book. Good things happen even though you went through hard times. But it's not like it evens out. I mean, I have books, yes, and that's a really fun thing, but I'd much rather have my loved ones than books. But on the other hand, to be able to say, okay, I've been in the trenches. I know how awful things can be. And yeah, I'll definitely reach out and say, this is what helped me. Maybe it can help you. And that's been part of my healing process too, is when I get messages from people who say, gosh, I was really struggling and I read your book and it helped me. Just to know, okay, I'm still have some meaning and some purpose, and I'm putting something out there that's helping other people. And hopefully my pain that I went through can somehow be helpful to somebody else. Some people think it's about solving people's problems or that we give them advice, but really it's about helping people better understand themselves. So they come in, sometimes they have a problem, a specific problem, like they're struggling with depression or they might have anxiety. Sometimes people are like, I feel like things that happened to me in my childhood affect me. I'm not reaching my greatest potential. What do I do? So it's really about having these conversations that help people see themselves a little bit differently. One of the big things we do in therapy is figure out what kind of beliefs somebody has. When they were a kid, maybe they thought they weren't good enough, and as an adult, they still hold on to that belief, and it plays out in all sorts of different areas of their lives. Or sometimes people will see themselves in a certain way, but then their behavior is different. And maybe we might point that out, kind of like a mirror, to say, hey, I hear you saying this, but this is the kind of behavior that I see. How do you make sense of that? Or at other times, people have a really specific goal. They come in and they say, I want to quit drinking, or I want to improve my marriage. What do I do about it? We come up with ideas, strategies, homework. People go home and they try those things, report back next week. But it's really about treating them like they're the expert on saying, how are we going to fix whatever's going on in your life? But it's up to you to decide what you want to try. I don't think everybody needs therapy. I don't think we should say everybody has a therapist and you keep seeing a therapist for life, because I don't think it's necessarily helpful over the long term if people always see a therapist. Sometimes we need it for short term, sometimes we need it in different times in our lives. But the number one factor of whether or not people get better is their relationship with the therapist. It really doesn't matter as much whether the therapist, what kind of techniques they use or strategies. It's all about whether somebody trusts their therapist enough to open up and that they can receive that feedback and that they feel like they have an open, honest, therapeutic relationship with the person. People will say, well, it's all about resilience, right? But I really see resilience as bouncing back from hard times, which is great. But what if we just braced ourselves our entire lives waiting for something horrible to happen? I don't think we should just make our lives about making sure that we somehow get through the next horrible thing that happens. It's not a very good way to live. But instead, it's about reaching your greatest potential, whether you are an athlete or a business person or a stay-at-home parent, whatever it is, to be able to say, I want to be able to think, feel, and do my best at whatever it is I'm doing. And yes, bad things are going to happen, but plenty of good things are going to happen too. And I want to feel like I can enjoy the good times too. Sometimes people will say, I need to get out there and do something. I need more confidence so I can go to college, or I need more confidence so I can have more friends. But I don't have any magic wands that would give anybody confidence. Sometimes you just have to act brave to feel brave. So how do you be courageous? Well, maybe it's signing up for a class, knowing that maybe you're going to fail, and that's okay. Or you put yourself out there, invite somebody for coffee, knowing that they might say no, but that you can handle it anyway. It's like so often I hear people when they talk about mental strength thinking it's about assuming you're always going to win and that things are always going to go well. Or if you sign up for that class and you think there's a chance you won't fail, then you're going to. Or that if you think that there's a chance you're going to fail at something, then you're letting that possibility into your life. The truth is we can all fail at something, but knowing I can tolerate failure, it's not the end of the world, that's okay, and I can keep going anyway, I think that's true mental strength. I think so often we just want to say, like, celebrate at the end, but we don't know how it's going to end. And if there's anything I've learned from my personal story too, it's that tomorrow's not guaranteed. So I hate to put off joy until I finally get to the end, because who knows what's going to happen tomorrow. So I try to take that and just remind myself, appreciate today, live the best life you can today, knowing that you're on this journey and there's no guarantee of what the finish line is or what's going to happen at the end.
Thank you so much to Amy Morin, her team, her family, for inviting us down to her home, showing us around, and we had such a wonderful time. All of that was made possible through Mulliganbrothers.com and your support that you give us at Mulliganbrothers.com, where you can buy the Inspire Change t-shirts, the journals. It meant that we could fly our crew, myself, my brother Luke, my sister Niamh, flew to the other side of the world, which we are so fortunate to be able to do, and took our film camera gear and all our equipment and filmed this project to deliver to you guys. So thank you for making that possible. Also, the sponsor of today's video is audible.com, where you can get Amy's book, 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do, with the link in the description. Go check that out. It's a free copy of a book, and I recommend reading it, which I have read myself. For me, Amy has been a great person to speak to these last couple of years, talking through my own grief, and it's an absolute pleasure and a privilege that I can speak to somebody like Amy on my troubles and tribulations, and so thank you for that. It's been an amazing journey for myself, and I can't thank Amy and her team enough. Anyway, what else is there more to say? Go inspire some change, guys. Whether it's through your actions, whether it's through sharing your story, or just getting through it day to day, go inspire some change. Have a blessed and productive day, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.